Raymond in a bar. Uh, I'd gone into a bar with a friend one night, and Raymond was there, and there was actually sort of an argument at the other end of this room, and I sort of drew everybody's attention, and Raymond was having an argument with these two cowboys, and who are sort of out of place themselves in a sort of upper class yuppie kind of bar as it was, and but that's the kind of place Raymond likes to hang out in. Anyway, we stopped in by the way because it was the only place open at that hour, and anyway, so he was getting into some trouble, and they were starting to push him around a little bit, and I sort of walked over and just tried to diffuse the situation. And to make a long story short, it worked out okay, and you can hardly see Raymond's limp anymore. So we got to talking. He was very thankful, bought me my friend drink, and we started to talking. And I think at the time he was doing custodial work for LA City Schools, and so he asked me what I did, and I told him, I was in graduate school. Uh, told him, about a little bit about biology, something he wasn't too familiar with at the time. But he seemed pretty intrigued, and he thought he was wondering if he could go back to school and maybe do something like that himself. He thought it really sounded interesting, and I said, well, I asked him how his grades were, and he said, well, frankly, they weren't all that great. He was, I could tell he was a really bright guy, a very sharp guy. But he screwed around a lot as a kid, ran with some bad people, and just didn't make the kind of grades he needed to go to graduate school. And then I suggested, hey, maybe you could go to SC. If you can meet the tuition, I'm pretty sure they'll take you. And once you get out of there, that'll give you 4 or 5 years to sort of bide time till you can pick up what you missed before. And um, he thought that was a pretty good idea. So I wrote him a letter of recommendation, and I think based on the strength of that letter, some help from some other people, and of course a $25,000 grant to the college, he got in, and he finished up his degree, and here we are. I'm really proud of him. I think he's really come a long way, and he's exceeded, I think, all of our expectations. And Raymond, here's to you. Are you just like focused on my head?
Yeah.
Good, because I want to make sure that you get the full effect. Well, I had to go to. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're hitting good. I had to go to a sort of semi dressed up gathering, and I had to go buy a shirt. So I was happened to be with Raymond, and I mentioned to him, and he said, "Well, hey, why don't you come with me to Nordstrom's? I'm pretty well known there." And we go to Nordstrom's, and we literally walk through the door. It's an hour and a half before they're gonna normally close, and they close the place down. They shuttle all the other patrons out. They lock the doors. The mood lighting changes. The piano player starts playing a little more upbeat song, and it turns out they have dedicated a song to Raymond called "The Shopper." They have special people who come up now because there's nobody else in the store. They come up and they help carry the things that he's buying. They help him shop. And as he whirls around the store, we whirled over to the men's department, and I bought a cotton shirt, long sleeve, 15 and a half, 35. And shopper said, no problem, put it on my account. They did, and in 10 minutes we were out of there. And that's my friend Raymond. for doing that. I stopped by Nordstrom's on a normal day as a normal customer, and I I bought a Nordstrom's shopping license plate, and we put it on his car when you're in Bahia, so that when he came down here, the whole world of Baja would know that he's the shopper. And he was very, very pleased and very touched, I think, by that gift, and I think it's still on his truck today. And it really points out the idea that he looks like this rough and tough kind of guy with this Ford Ranger and 4-wheel drive and all. But if you look up close, He's got the Nordstrom Shopper license ring, and you really know he's a sensitive kind of guy. So, um, I think really that's all I have to say, unless he comes back and suggests some other story, in which I might have to come back and add a few more things to it. But that's the story of the shopper. Of who?
Of you. You wouldn't believe this picture, like, what am I gonna do?
Larry washing dishes in Belize.
You wash dishes?
Yeah.
Do you know how? Never even watched it.
Think we could get a big fish if we trolled the cook. About 3 years ago, came down with the class, Raymond's course, and Raymond bought a new boat, and so he decided to take it out for a spin. And anyway, we were running out through about the middle of the bay, and I noticed that there was a little valve that was leaking, and I mentioned it to him, and he said, "Okay, we'll take care of it. Take a look at it when we get back." And I said, "Well, do you want me to try tightening it?" He said, "Yeah, that would be a good idea. Try it, see if you can tighten it down, and stop that leak." So I did, and as soon as I took it, it was a nice boat in a way. It had a lot of character to it, kind of like Popeye's boat. But it had some rust, some things that need to be replaced, and unfortunately this pipe was a little rusty and corroded. So I really didn't want to twist it, because when you're out on the water, you don't really mess too much with things like that.
The story.
So
I'll tighten this for you. No, don't.
So anyway, I said, "Are you sure you want me to tighten this?" He says, "Yeah, go ahead. What can happen? I mean, it's a boat, So I went and tightened it, and as soon as I started to move it, it snapped, and water gushed up about 18 inches. And he wasn't looking. I said, I think we have a leak back here. And he says, "Oh, how about it?" I said, "Well, I think you ought to take a look at it." It's probably doing about 8 or 10 knots. He looked at that thing. Next thing I know, we're doing 25 knots on the water, zooming back to the shore so we could get back before it took too much water and sank. And unfortunately, it had a little scoop that faced forward underneath the hull. So the faster you went, the higher the water went. So water was shooting up about 3-4 feet in the back of the hull. And the hull was really the back of the boat, the bow, stern, whatever. The back of the boat was really filling up pretty quickly, and it was really a race before we could get back to get back to shore before the thing sank. Fortunately, he had enough kids, and we could bring it up off the bottom and clean it out and dry it. And in this hot weather, it dried out in about 5 days, and it was pretty good. I come down here, I help out, I do little things, I talk a little about birds. I have a lot of free time, so I took the engine off it and rebuilt it while he was doing his course. Spare parts were hard to get. It took a day and a half. I thought we'd finish it up in about a day, but I had to go to Guerrero Negro, which is about a 2.5-hour drive there, and then back to get the parts. But it was running fine. It was running great. It was really too small an engine for that big boat, but you got to know these things before you go ahead and purchase.